Hey everyone, in this video, I am going to show you the methods that I have used over the last 2 decades to propagate well over 1,000 to 2,000 fig cuttings into successful big fig trees. Now, I have to say, all right, here's a fig tree right here, okay? And guess what? When I first started, I didn't know what I was doing. All right, I heard, you're supposed to put it in on an angle like this, and you're supposed to wrap it up, and you're supposed to do all these crazy things. And I tried a whole bunch of different things. And what I started doing is I started doing the simplest method. But I'm gonna really explain a number of different factors, okay? So the first thing I did is I just took the cutting like this, I made them, cut them all down, and I kept a bunch of them in water. And after keeping them in water, I just put a couple inches of water in the container. And after keeping them in water, all of a sudden, within like a month, they all started growing leaves. And then I started like making a hole, putting them in soil, and then they started growing, all right? Because I got so busy, I just left them in water. I changed the water every week. And then of course I meet somebody else and they say, guess what? You can do is you can make a cup of chamomile tea, and you can make a chamomile tea mixture, and the chamomile tea aids in assisting with the leaf growth and kind of acts as a bit of a, you could say, a support. So, you can try the chamomile tea. And then you'll also hear where people say using a rooting hormone. Now, rooting hormone is important because there's properties in the rooting hormone. What that does is it stimulates root growth, okay? But again, if you don't have a rooting hormone, alternatively, what I did is I took some cinnamon out of the cupboard and I put some cinnamon in this container. You can just dip the tip into some cinnamon, okay? And then what you can do is you can make what I call a chaser hole, okay? Because if I push this through the soil, all the cinnamon's gonna rub off. Cinnamon is an antifungal. Some people say it's like a natural rooting hormone, okay? Or you can put honey on it, or some people will mix honey and cinnamon together, okay? You can get liquid rooting hormone, you can get powder rooting hormone, okay? Other methods as well, okay? You can actually get a container of sand, wet the sand, and then you can just lay your cuttings, kind of like, stick them in the sand, stick the whole thing in sand, and what'll happen is put a lid on the sand, and the moisture in that container will start the cuttings to create roots. And then you can, after they've created a bunch of roots, you can create a hole and stick them in. Okay, now what I've done here is I've created what's called a chaser hole in my pot, just like that. And what that does is it ensures that when I push this cutting in, okay, when I put this cutting in, it's not going to rub off. So I just put it in like that, I bury it, and guess what? The most important ingredient after that, water. Just water consistently. Because as long as this maintains a level of moisture, it will grow. Now, when I plant cuttings, I'm often planting 100, 200, 300 at a time. I'll cut a whole bunch of cuttings. I have a big stack of them. I have a whole bunch of pots, and I'm doing a whole bunch. So I don't necessarily use rooting hormone every single time. So I've tried a number of different methods. They all work. Now, I'm here in the Pacific Northwest, here in Vancouver, BC, Canada. So when I'm propagating my fig cuttings, I try to do it in the spring, and then they all come up, well, most of them, okay, we have a high degree of success. But then what happens is you have all these small fig trees, and if it gets too cold in the winter, they die off, okay? And that's just something that's gonna happen. And then the ones that survive grow into be big, strong trees like this. Right now, we're going into the fall, so the leaves are starting to turn a bit yellow. So most important thing is that if you're not going to put your cuttings into a pro mix or a potting mix right away, then all you're going to do is just keep them in water, change the water out once a week. You can use a rooting hormone, you can use cinnamon, you can use honey, you can use cinnamon and honey, put them in and get them going. If you don't have cinnamon or honey or rooting hormone, just get them in the ground. Now, when I put them in a pot like this, you can see I've got 2 different size pots here. Most important thing is bury as much of the cutting as possible. I could even fill this up to here with soil so it's level. Another thing is this, is if I was gonna plant this in the ground out in my garden bed somewhere, or if I have a spot, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a chaser hole and I'm gonna bury it, and all I really want is one node, okay, to be about 1 inch above the soil. So I would bury it to about there, right where the second node is, because I only need one node, so this creates some leaf structure going up, okay? Now, other little things you're gonna see people do, sometimes people are gonna, they're gonna wrap this with cellophane, okay? You'll also see people taking their cutting, and they'll get a clear plastic cup, and they'll put their cutting in a clear plastic cup. They'll soak the soil, they'll put it in there, because what that does is now when it starts to grow, you can actually start to see the roots come through. I've done that before, that works really, really well. Another thing you can do is you can put yet another plastic cup on top, and then you can just tape it, and what that does is it seals in the moisture so that you don't have to water that after you initially water the soil when it's sitting in your container. It would be like me growing my cutting like this, putting a plastic cup over it, or alternatively you can take a plastic bag and you can put a plastic bag over it and just kind of seal it, but you don't want to seal it, you want to open it up a little bit each day. It needs to breathe, because if it stays too moist for too long, it can rot, okay? And the same thing when you're using your cuttings and you're putting them in a container of sand, if you start to notice any mold or fungus or anything growing, then what you're going to do is you're going to take the lid off, let it breathe, and then put the lid back on to maintain a level of moisture. So there you have it. This is sort of a fast track way that I have used for the last couple of decades. I've grown so many fig trees. I grow so many every year. I give away thousands and thousands of cuttings every year. I have a monster fig tree in the backyard. It's like 20 feet wide and 25 feet tall. It's massive. So we cut it back. I give away a ton of trees, I should say a ton of cutting branches, and then I just let people take their branches home, because some people like to make long cuttings, short cuttings, right? Really small cuttings. You can do all kinds. You can use everything. Like if you see this wood right here, okay, you can see there's a little bit of a green tip growing on it right here, okay? Now that little bit of green, okay, that means it's alive. So all we're gonna do is get that into the soil. You might come across a cutting where you get a piece of wood that's like this big, right? Like it looks like a log. It will grow. Just put some rooting hormone on it, get it in the soil, get it growing. I had a log that was this big, okay, literally this big. I had put it in a 5-gallon pail. It had this much water in it. And the next thing you know, it started to grow a leaf. And I put it in a pot of soil and it grew. So the key thing, get it in the soil. I have to say this, figs are probably one of the most easiest trees to grow. They're much easier than growing various types of apple trees and plum trees and peach trees and things like that. Figs just want to grow. So just get them in the soil, water them, let them go. If it's the fall where you're growing here in Vancouver, what you're going to do, and you want to grow them in the ground, put in lots. I always tell people, if you've got the ability to put in like 20 of these things, put in 20, put in 50, because if we have a cold winter and we don't have a high success rate, let's say half of them grow. Well, abundance is a good problem to have. You can always give your fig trees away once they get going. So there you have it. Go ahead, plant lots, and be sure to check out our website, garden@foodforthought.com, and I'll put that in the details below. And that's what I do. I teach people how to grow food. I teach people how to propagate trees in our garden program called Food for Thought. And this is what we do. We teach people, and this is why I'm teaching you and sharing this with you today. So have fun, everyone. Happy planting, and put your comments and questions below. Cheers.